What if the hardest part of starting over isn't building the new life? What if it's grieving the old one while you're still living it? Because, y'all, I'm beginning to understand that moving forward may require me to release more than a place or a job. It may require me to release an identity, a routine, a timeline I once believed would be my whole story. And the uncomfortable part is this: I can be grateful for the life I've built and still know that I'm not meant to stay exactly where I am forever. Hey y'all, I'm Vanessa and this is Waves of Change, where we talk about what it really looks like to start over with faith, strategy, and a whole lot of it's all figure outable. Before we go any further, no, I don't have any news to share about the position in law school today. But the waiting, the hoping, and the possibility have brought something else to the surface. I've been asking myself, what am I actually afraid to leave behind? Not just the location, not just the job, not just the routine. What parts of myself have become so familiar that releasing them feels almost like losing a piece of who I am? Today I want to talk about the grief that comes with starting over. Not just the excitement, not just the new possibilities, not just the fresh notebook, the vision board, or the beautiful announcement that you're entering a new chapter. I'm talking about the part where moving forward requires you to release some things that were not necessarily bad. Things that were familiar. Things that helped you survive. Things that gave you a sense of identity. Things that other people still expect you to carry. Starting over is not only about building a new life, it's also about grieving the life, identity, and timeline I'm leaving behind. We often talk about starting over like it's a clean break. You make a decision, you pack a bag, you change jobs, you move somewhere new. You announce your new beginning. And then somehow you're supposed to feel free. But real life is usually much more complicated than that. Sometimes your body is still in the old place while your heart has already started moving. Sometimes your responsibilities are still here, but your imagination keeps visiting somewhere else. And sometimes you're grateful for your current life, but you're no longer willing to pretend it's the complete life. And that can create a very complicated kind of tension, because gratitude and longing can exist in the same room. You can appreciate what has carried you and still admit that it can't carry you into the next chapter. So today I want to talk about the hidden cost of starting over. The grief of releasing what is familiar. The identity shift that happens when your old role no longer fits. The timeline you thought your life would follow. And the challenge of moving forward while building support intentionally. Now, the first thing I'm learning is that familiarity has emotional weight. Even when something is uncomfortable, it can still feel safe simply because you know how to navigate it, right? You know the routine, you know the expectations, you know the people. You know what is required of you. You know how to perform your role. And sometimes familiarity keeps us attached long after we've outgrown the situation. Y'all know it's true. We say, at least we know what to expect here. We say, it could be worse. And then we say, I've already invested so much. We find ourselves saying, maybe I just need to be a little more patient. Now, patience is important, don't get me wrong, but patience should not become a permanent address. I'm not saying every uncomfortable season means you should leave. I'm not. I'm not saying that every difficult workplace or season is a sign that you miss God's word. Sometimes growth is happening right in the place you wish you could escape. But sometimes the discomfort is not asking you to endure more. Sometimes it's asking you to pay attention. There's a difference between being stretched and being depleted. There's a difference between being challenged and being constantly diminished. And there's a difference between a temporary sacrifice and a lifestyle built entirely around postponing your own peace. So here's the question I have to ask myself. Am I staying because it's truly where I'm called to be? Or am I staying because leaving would require me to become someone new? That's not an easy question. Sometimes we're afraid to release the version of ourselves that learned how to survive there. The woman who learned how to be dependable. The woman who stayed calm during the chaos. The woman who took care of everyone else. The woman who kept going even when she was exhausted. The woman who deserves honor, but she may not need to lead every chapter. Yeah, starting over at 59 has made me think a lot about identity. Who I am when I'm not only defined by what I do for other people. Who I am when I'm not constantly solving a problem. Who am I when I'm not proving that I can handle everything? Those questions can make you uncomfortable, especially if you spent decades being needed. Some people become so accustomed to the version of you who is always available, the version who says yes, the version who absorbs the inconveniences, the version who makes everything work. But when you begin to change, the people around you may not immediately understand it. And honestly, sometimes you may not understand it yourself. You may think, why don't I feel more excited? Why am I grieving something I said I wanted to leave? Because change could be right and still be painful. You could be ready for something new and still miss what's familiar. You could be grateful for the woman you became and still know she can't remain exactly the same. That's the tension of reinvention, y'all. It's not becoming a completely different person. It's allowing the truest parts of you to become visible again. There's another part of grief we don't always talk about. The grief of the timeline. The timeline you thought you would follow. By this age, you thought you'd be settled. By this age, you thought certain dreams would already be completed. By this age, you thought you would know exactly what came next. But sometimes life doesn't follow the schedule we create for it. And sometimes we're not grieving reality, we're actually grieving the expectations. The life we imagined, the timeline we created, the story we wrote in our heads. I have to be honest with myself about that, because starting over at 59 can bring up questions like, why didn't this happen sooner? Why am I still figuring this out? Shouldn't I be further along than this? But y'all, being later is not the same as being too late. Hear me on that. A delayed chapter is not a denied story, and a different timeline doesn't mean a meaningless life. Sometimes the next chapter takes longer because we're becoming prepared for something we couldn't have carried before. That doesn't make the waiting easy. It doesn't erase the disappointment, but it can give the waiting meaning. So here's what I realized. I don't have to punish myself for the years I spent surviving. I can honor what those years taught me and still choose something different now. One of the honest parts about this journey is that I'll be doing it without a partner. And I'd be lying if I said this never feels heavy. There are moments when I think about moving, changing careers, rebuilding, and starting again, and I realize there's no automatic person standing beside me saying, we'll figure this out together. That can make a big decision feel even bigger, because sometimes the hardest part is not the decision itself. It's carrying the decision while also carrying the practical details, the questions, the uncertainty, the moments when you simply want someone else to say, I see you. I know this is a lot. But here's what I'm learning, y'all. Doing this without a partner doesn't mean I have to do it without support. Those are two very different things. I may not have one person who is responsible for carrying every part of this journey with me, but I can still build a circle of people who offer prayer, wisdom, encouragement, laughter, practical help, an honest perspective. And I have to be willing to ask. That part has not always been easy for me. Sometimes we become so capable that people assume we don't need anything. And sometimes we become so used to handling everything that we stop giving people the opportunity to show up. But independence shouldn't become isolation. Strength shouldn't require silence. And being single in a season doesn't mean being unsupported in a life. Releasing doesn't mean rejecting, y'all. It doesn't mean the old life has no value. It doesn't mean the people, places, jobs, or seasons that shaped you were mistakes. It means you are willing to stop asking the past to become the future. This reminds me of Isaiah chapter 43, verses 18 and 19. Remember ye not the former things, neither consider the things of old. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. That scripture doesn't tell me to pretend the former things never mattered. It reminds me not to live there forever. God can use the old season without requiring me to remain in it. And if He's doing a new thing, I have to be willing to notice it, even when the new thing begins as an uncomfortable release. So releasing is not abandoning my history. It's trusting God with my future. Some things were meant to teach you. Some things were meant to strengthen you. Some things were meant to carry you for a season. But not everything that carried you here is meant to go with you there. That's the hard truth. But it can also be a freeing truth. I can thank the dependable version of myself without allowing her to make every decision. I can honor the practical version of myself without letting practicality bury every dream. I can appreciate the life I lived without pretending I don't desire a different one. So here's what nobody tells you, y'all. You don't have to feel completely ready before you begin releasing. You can release slowly. You can release honestly. You can release with tears. You can release while still being grateful. And you can move forward with faith even when the entire path isn't visible. So let's take a few minutes to reflect. Starting over isn't just about where we're going. It's also about what we're grieving, what we're carrying, and what we're finally ready to release. Journal prompt number 1. What part of my old life, identity, or timeline am I grieving as I prepare for something new? Prompt number 2. What did this previous season teach me that I want to carry forward? Number 3. What is one thing I'm ready to release or stop postponing so I can move forward with faith and intention. Take your time with these. You don't have to solve your whole life right now. You don't have to explain every answer to everyone. Just be honest about what this season is showing you. Leave a comment and tell me what you're learning to release in this season. If this encouraged you, please share it with someone who needs this. Like this video and subscribe for more conversations about midlife reinvention, faith, intentional living, career transitions, and starting over with purpose. Yeah, I'm Vanessa, and this is Ways of Change. Remember, you're never too late, and your peace is never too far. Bye.